This is Cindy Gould from the Victorious Create Your Victorious Life. And I want to welcome you back to the Spanglish World Networks and Zingo TV channels 250 and 251. I am so excited for you to be here today. Please remember to download both the Zingo TV apps on your respective devices, whether it's iOS or your Android. While you download, please leave us a stellar rating and a comment. That would be so awesome. The app's totally free. And you know what's cool is that Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV sticks, and your Roku and Roku sticks. Also on all smart TVs, not the dumb ones, but the smart ones since 2016. Today, I'm totally stoked because I get to have my good friend Arron Lloyd here today to share about his life and how he's created victory in his life, and you are going to love it. Let me just tell you a little bit about my friend, and you may recognize him for whether you've gone to maybe some really cool theater in New York City or other places he's performed. He's also been on Bull and Blue Bloods, and I'm a Blue Bloods girl and a Bull fan. So, you may recognize him from there, but what's really cool about him is just his neat story. He was born in the inner city in New York, of course, or maybe it wasn't New York, but in the inner city to a single mother home. And so, you know what, Arron, for the way that he's bringing, the way that he was brought up, and he kind of took responsibility for his two sisters and had a lot more on his plate as a young child and as a young man than a lot of folks did. But it actually served to help him to create such the beautiful life that he has. As an actor and a certified one-star dual elite neuroencoding specialist, which is how I know him, he helps actors and entrepreneurs to encode themselves to default to their very, very, very best behavior, eliminating, mitigating, and destroying, absolutely obliterating the thieves of their dreams and that toxic 10, which we'll probably touch a little bit on today. So without further ado, I am so excited. Arron, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Cindy. That's such a beautiful intro. I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah. So, everybody that sits in that hot seat, I always ask the same question. And, you and I've had the privilege of having a couple of conversations around this, and I love your story. And so if you would please share with us, how have you created such a victorious life? And how did you get started all the way back when with doing that?
Sure, that's an amazing question. So my name's Arron. I'm originally from the inner city, as Cindy said, and I'd say the most pivotal thing that kind of has helped me on my journey has been mentorship. And what I mean by mentorship is when I was growing up in inner city, I didn't really have many kind of outwardly positive influences around me. And what I mean by outwardly is that at the time I didn't realize people like my mom, people like my grandparents, just these people who kind of would protect me from things that I would typically get into, the streets and things like that, via my mom being a little strict, or by the grace of having to take care of my sisters at a time when I would be sneaking out and not doing what my mom said. I couldn't do that because either my sisters would snitch and say, "Mom, Arron, you was out," or I just didn't want to abandon them and leave them in the house by themselves. So there was a little bit of that just to help my mom out around the house. So I've had to learn just by experience how to emotionally mature and mature at a younger age. So that's really served me in terms of my maturity, in terms of leadership, in terms of desiring more for myself. And I'd say the other thing on top of that has just been something that's always been with me, which is an internal drive. I just believe that life is such a gift for each and every one of us. And I think the biggest tragedy is not to be the best that you can be in this life, this gift, this precious gift that we've been given. So couple that on top of mentorship. My grandmother taught me how to read at a very young age. So the desire to read and learn and explore these different kind of avenues has been pivotal for me. So 1, mentorship; 2, just circumstances; and 3, just an internal desire. I'd say those have been helping me create that victorious life.
Okay. Thank you. That was pretty concise. One of the things that you said that I really love is you said the phrase that you had the grace of your sisters. That's beautiful, Arron. Like, seriously. You could be bitter. You could be mad. I missed out on fill in the blank, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you did that. And instead you turned all of that into purpose, which is pretty neat. That's
That's
pretty
exactly right.
awesome that you did. So you said mentorship, and number
Mhm.
two,
Circumstances, just growing up in the inner city, watching sisters, um, just single parent home.
yeah,
And also yeah, I'd leave it at that, yeah.
yeah. And then the third thing,
Third thing was internal drive, just wanting something for myself. And I think if I were to explore that within myself, because I lost my father at such a young age, I remember distinctly a moment in time. I didn't ha- I had a my room. I had a bunk bed, and then I had a little laptop that I would do my homework on. I didn't have a chair, so I would sit on the floor. And I remember doing homework for school one day, and I think I was around probably 16, 17. And I think my father passed when he was probably like 20 or 19 or however old he was. And I was thinking,
mm,
like, the saying, like father, like son, and things like that. What's life mean? Why was my father so young when he passed, and things like that? And I remember having a conversation with myself. Well, what am I going to make this mean? This is prior to even the Tony
ah,
Robbins, prior to all this kind of stuff. Really precocious kids, Cindy, if I if I may say so
wow,
myself.
wow,
It's like, what am I going to make this mean? And what I made that mean, I was like, well, I want to experience everything he couldn't experience. I want to experience what life really can be, because it's a gift that I have, and I could choose that word that you use, be bitter, and
mm,
or I can use this as fuel to say I want the best there can be for myself and my family. And
100%.
that's kind of where that internal drive came from.
Wow, bitter or better, right?
Bitter or better, yeah.
Totally. I love that. I mean, that's like the poster child for Tony. What am I going to make this mean? That's the
Yeah.
poster child for neuroencoding, right? I mean, and you were 16. And when you said that, and you said the age that your father was when he passed, I felt it,
Yeah.
because that was just a few years older than you were when you were asking the question, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
and I that is pretty profound when you think about it. I love that mentorship, circumstances, and internal drive. So when you say internal drive, I think vision,
Hmm.
because you've got this, and because you're an actor and you live in that imagination. I think internal drive. I think the word imagination, and I think image in, right?
Hmm.
Again, that internal drive, because what you shared with me yesterday really hit me, and I actually chewed on it like all day thinking about you, because you said that your very first mentors were books.
Hmm.
Now, I look at that and I think, holy cow, and look what he does for a living. Because when you're in books, if you're like me, like I'm instantly the character, right? One of those characters. I'm living in it. I can see the room that's being described. I'm in the car. I'm in the situation, the conversation, whatever it is, right?
Hmm.
And then you took that, all of that beautiful, hiding, running away in that fantasy land of books, and now you're on the screen with it, and you've become those characters, right?
That's
How
exactly
cool is
right.
that, Aaron?
It's very cool. All my English teachers love me because I don't know if you guys did this in school, like where they would say, "Okay, we're gonna read and take turns reading the paragraphs." I would always,
Mhm.
go, "Ooh, ooh, me, please," So yeah.
I love it. So, when you say mentorship, tell us maybe some things that were really pivotal for you from maybe some of your favorite mentors, whether it was your grandmother, your mama, a teacher, a instructor, a boss.
Yes, each one of those people that you've mentioned. I'll start with my mother. Just the thing that she's mentored me with, and something that she'd always say is, make the right choices. Make the right
Mm,
choices. Make the right choices. She's always been, any plays that I've done, she's been first, and my mom is very extroverted, right? She's gonna make herself known in a room. So after a show, she would be standing up saying, "That's my baby." She was like one of those moms. So very encouraging and praising me for that. And just through her example, her hard work, I didn't want to let her down. She would
mm,
work hard and just provide. And at the time when when I was a kid, I didn't really have the level of appreciation that I have now. Looking back, it's like one of those things when parents say, "One day you'll understand." Yeah, lately I've been understanding that a lot more. Just how
mm,
her example, how at the time where she was super strict, Cindy. She was very strict. She could have been a little less strict, I think, and I still would have been okay. You know what I'm saying?
mm,
But she was strict, and I appreciate her for that, because where I have friends that aren't here anymore. there's been just things, circumstances that I could have gotten myself into. So I'm grateful for her for that. My grandmother has always been somebody who has encouraged me with music. I originally wanted to be a musician. And when I was very young, she was telling me about people like Louis Armstrong and Ella Fitzgerald and Earth, Wind, and Fire would be playing in the house. And she had such a deep desire for reading. And when she found out I wanted to be an actor, she was like, well, you know, Paul Robeson, he was the first guy that played Othello. So between that combined with my mother through her example, my grandmother with her was always there to kind of teach me the value of a dollar. So I would rake people's yards. I would shovel when it was snowing, trying to make money. And then as I got older, books, things like acting teachers. Westover was one of my first acting teachers. Dale Rose, shout out to Dale Rose College. Kristen Wold, great acting teacher. Karen Riker, shout out to all these great people. And then lately, in terms of life, just relationships, having positive examples of what a great marriage could be, having and understanding that there are people that love their wives and love their husbands and isn't part of the culture, and having that example, people like Brian and Sia, or like a Muhammad and V, or Anthony and Jody. These people kind of give me perspective in terms of life. So Aaron Lloyd has not become Aaron Lloyd by himself. I love to shout out and give people their roses, because coming where I'm from, I just needed to seek that. And because I sought it out, I've now been blessed with that. And it's ever expanding. You're a mentor. Joseph McClendon III is a mentor. People that have great things are really and live according to their values and inspirations is such an amazing blessing to me. And I like to surround myself with those kinds of people.
Gosh, it's interesting that, because when you and I met, I know I felt like this instant, like I know this guy, and like an instant bond with you. I remember we were chatting in Vegas. It was a few years ago, actually, a couple of years ago, and at the event that we went to, and I know for me, it's the same thing. I like to surround myself with people that walk their values out, and that it's evident and they're congruent with that. Right. Because, everybody's heard you are the 5 people, right, that you hang out with the most, et cetera. And I know there was a time when I went to, when we had moved, and it was very far away, 2.5 hours away from our kids. We were 20 minutes away from the Canadian border. We lived in the middle of nowhere. A beautiful, holy cow, breathtaking, because Pacific Northwest, right? It's gorgeous. Lived on property. And here I am, and thinking, okay, I live in a town that's population 432 people.
Sheesh.
Yeah, hello. I mean, and you're in New York City, so I mean, just imagine there's more people in your apartment complex, right?
Right.
And so I remember thinking, I don't have neighbors. In fact, until I moved back closer to town, I hadn't had neighbors since 2007, like legit neighbors. Everybody's like 40 acres apart, right? And so I remember thinking, I'm just going to wither up and die here. What's going to happen? Because who are my top 5? So guess what I did?
Books.
YouTube. So Tony Robbins was one of my top 5. Joseph McClendon III was one of my top 5. Bill Winston, a pastor in Chicago, Illinois, one of my top 5. Jesse Duplantis, one of my top 5. And I did that. And oh my goodness, within less than a year and a half, I was at Tony's UPW. And less than 2 years, in 2021, joined Joseph.
Wow.
I mean, and it literally changed my life. It was one of the biggest blessings that, because I mean, I'm looking around like, okay, there's all these lumberjacky people. And I'm kind of like, the Green Acres girl, the nail, you've seen me. So, I've got like platforms, shoes, and I like wear my flats till I get to the car, and then I put my shoes back on, because I'm on bumpy terrain getting to the car. Like seriously. But I remember doing that, but it changed my life. Like totally changed my life. And then, yes, I am an avid reader like you are still. I mean, there's something to be said for having that. In fact, I was just talking with one of our good friends, JT, from the Institute. And I said, and I said, who's a phenomenal human. And I said, I wanted to add a room to my home that's just a library that has like the floor to ceiling bookshelves with the ladder that is hooked, that you just. Yes. For all my books, as I can get them out of the totes that they're in, but So anyway, what I love about you is not only that you give roses to your people, that you actually apply the things that you learn from them, that you
Yes.
do look at them as mentors. Like, okay, this person has this amazing marriage, and then you become a student, or you become their understudy, so to speak, to stay
Yeah.
in yours
Okay.
of how they, right?
Yeah.
What is, like, would you say, just pick some of your mentors outside of your family,
Mhm.
the ones maybe with relationships, or because it occurs to me, if your father, and please, I'm so sorry for your loss. I know that was tough as a young boy, and then of course as a man, to not have
Mhm.
your father around. Um, did you ever feel, because you were kind of the guy, the man in the house, right? You had two sisters and your mama. Did
Mhm.
that, or did you put maybe unnecessary responsibilities or stress on you? And then maybe which mentor kind of helped you navigate out of that?
Recently I just discovered something that was really profound for myself in that, and exactly what you're talking about. As a kid, I was the man of the house, very, very young. I mean, and the crazy thing is I thought this was normal. It was a normal thing. What I've learned since then is that that made me grow. I have to grieve my childhood. And
Mm,
I've learned that. Like I have to grieve that. I feel like saying that makes it seem like I didn't have a childhood. My childhood was great, and I also didn't always have the space to just be a kid, just from circumstances.
yeah.
So to answer your question, there was a responsibility of me stepping up, and I've
Mhm,
learned that what I learned, a kind of pattern I learned from that, is to put other people's needs above my own, even though I have needs of my own.
mm,
That's a tendency that I've had, right? And I'm
mm,
starting to undo that. And a mentor that is he's also a pastor. His name's Justin, and we're kind of exploring that right now. And so he's a mentor, and then just having positive examples like somebody I mentioned, Muhammad and V. He's a great friend of mine, younger than I am. He's a great guy, very successful for his age, and he is breaking generational trauma himself and breaking generational curses and things like that. And he came from a broken home, and I came from a single parent home. And ideally, when I do find my person, I want it to be one one person for the rest, if possible. I know life happens and things like that, but for myself, I feel like as maybe it's more traditional. I feel like as the leader of the house, as the head of the household, I want to have a plan for a relationship. I want to have a solid foundation so we can get there. And having examples like Mo and V and people like Anthony and Jody and people like that. It's not to say that relationships don't have challenges, but they navigate it beautifully, and they
yeah.
have open communication. I've learned that from them. Outside of them, obviously Tony has been one. I also got into his work through a YouTube video. Joseph, UPW, instant fell in love with him and wanted to be around. So I hope that answered your question.
It
Yeah.
does. And you know what? A couple of things that you hit on, I think one of them is generational curses and generational trauma.
Yeah.
I actually served at the healing rooms, and I don't know if you're familiar with John G. Lake's work at all, and also was on the deliverance team at our church. And it's a real thing. Like,
Yeah.
people don't really realize, and it is something that even DNA wise, I
Yeah.
mean, it just, and the cycles that are repeated, and you don't know what you don't know. Like,
Yeah.
if that's what's set up for you, think about where you grew up, right? And the other playmates and friends you had that were pretty much doing the same thing, then job two, and you
Mhm.
were at home being the glue, right? Because some
Yep.
moms had to work two or three jobs to make sure that you guys had shoes, and
Exactly.
and we're able to do the things, and so much honor for that,
Yeah.
and for how hard they worked. I applaud you for wanting to um, make sure that you're as whole and healed and complete when you
Exactly.
get married, and you get married the one time, and you create that beautiful family that
Yep.
stays together, because families are forever. I believe that. And to be honest, I mean, even though you know that I'm divorced, etc., but I look for the same thing, that
Yeah.
I, just one mate for the rest of my life and create whatever God's, I always say it like this, to stay in alignment with my assignment and do what God's purposed me to do.
I love
And
that.
thank you. You take it. And and seriously though, because there's a person that you'll get to share your life with and
Yeah.
create a beautiful family with. And it'll be so wonderful because you're taking the steps now, right? To make
Yeah.
sure that it's beautiful that you're grieving your childhood. That's important. And
Yeah.
I had this experience, and it's funny because I would have never shared this. So before my son Monas, I moved back home to heaven. About 5 months before that, I had been a single mom before I was married, to my ex-husband, and I had my three babies, and they're grown. You guys are all in the same age category, and I had them and I felt that I felt a need to just sit down with each of them privately and just say, hey, I made choices when you were younger, in
Mhm.
my own pain, in my own generational things, but to really own anything that might have opened a door for them to have sadness or hurt or pain or anything, and open a conversation for forgiveness. Like, hey
Yeah.
guys, whatever it is, that if I created anything that caused you hurt or pain, and I was very specific with situations that I knew,
Mhm.
and I acknowledged where I was at, things that happened in my childhood that caused belief systems that I anchored myself into, things
Mhm.
that I was growing out of, etc. And it was the most beautiful thing. And I didn't know obviously that Mana was gonna, move back home to heaven. So for me to have had that combo,
It's
and
beautiful.
then yeah, right? And
Yeah.
I would invite you to consider, if you haven't already,
Mhm.
opening that door with your mom and your grandmother if she's still here.
Mhm.
Um, because your mom worked so hard, but she was on Mach speed, right?
Yeah.
And grieving herself. And she was young when your dad passed, and you know what I mean? All those things. And what did she carry with her from
Well,
her
she
parents, and right?
yeah, her story is really incredible. She shared elements, and still I don't know a lot. So exactly what you're talking about, that generational trauma, consider, and that's something I think that's a profound topic as well. Sometimes, I think people in general, no parent is perfect, and I
Mhm.
think in general, as a son or a daughter or something like that, you look at your parents and kind of blame, and we never stop to ask how they've come up, why they are the way they are, because they're doing the best they can. Everybody's doing the best they can with the resources that they had. And I
Amen.
think it's beautiful that you had a conversation and was healed enough yourself in that ever growing journey to be able to express that. And it was beautiful that they were able to reconcile and do that. I recently learned that as well. Like with relationships, any relationship is going to have a rupture, but sometimes the rupture happens and people just like stay away from it. The key is to repair. That's how you create stronger bonds.
Yes.
Sometimes things get, sometimes people misconstrue, or you said this and you meant this, but they received it this way. And just a lot of that is important to navigate. And I think it takes a certain level of emotional intelligence, which you have, which I have, and consistently developing, to be able to have the awareness and the humility to express that we're not perfect, and sometimes we make mistakes, and sometimes we need to apologize and have forgiveness as well. So I think, yeah, those are conversations I'm open to having for sure. Absolutely.
How fun. And even you were thrown into being a dad, pretty
Yes.
much. You were a
Yeah.
big brother, but then you had to make decisions when you were barely making those decisions for yourself.
Yeah.
You know,
What I want, do I want apple juice or pineapple juice?
exactly. Or even no, you can't do that,
Yeah.
when you're like not allowed to do some of those things and you want to go, like you said, and how tough. So how is it with your sisters now? Like,
Beautiful. It's we're starting to develop. We have I have a chat on my phone. I call them my day ones. So we have a little chat that we talk. And actually talking about vulnerability, I've shared this as well, because I have a tendency, my temperament is introvert. It doesn't mean I'm shy. It just means I'm low key. I'm very laid back, and my face could be blank, but I'm happy as hell inside. But like, what's wrong? Oh, I'm chilling, man. I'm chilling. I'm really cool. So it's like, for my sister, my Imani, she's an extrovert, and she's
mhm,
also she's kind of like the glue. She wants like closeness, For me, I felt like we're close, but her model of closeness was not that. So I remember Thanksgiving, like 2 or 3 years ago, after, because to take responsibility for my part in this, when it was time to leave Bridgeport and go to college, I was like, peace. I'm out. I don't want nothing to do with this. I'm living my life. I've been on, had these responsibilities. I want to just enjoy my life. And in doing that and being a little selfish for that period of time, they were missing me. And I didn't know that, right? It wasn't until like 5 or 6 years ago where Imani said, I'm just gonna stop reaching out to y'all. I feel like nobody care. I feel like you don't love me and things like that. I was like, what? And that hurt me because I clearly love my sister. I just wasn't expressing it. So it took me hearing that from her to be able to be like, okay, let me make some adjustments. And that's the key. Like I'm open to constructive criticism. I'm open to getting better because that's the goal. I want to get better. So when she shared that with me, that was a vulnerable moment for her, and her and I relationship has improved. And then my youngest sister, she's very introverted. She don't like, I'll try to talk. So you see any, I'm trying to make sure I'm protected. You see any guys, anything like that? She don't share nothing, but she's out there she's living her life and things like that. But her and I are close. And the way I've kind of deepened that is by asking her for advice. If she doesn't want to share with me, like I'll talk to her. Hey, what do you think of this? Or what do you think of that? Just involving them more in my relationships and taking as much active intention as I would with my acting career or goals or business or anything that with my relationships. And it's a challenging balance. Sometimes I fall short, and I can acknowledge that. And I'm doing the best I can, right, with the resource that I have.
Yep. And you know what? To go back to that point, I agree with you what you said about parents. And my parents, they're rock stars. Like I know their childhood bits and pieces that were painful, and and the things that they were thrust into as young people, and the fact that they created such a beautiful family, and they outdid where they were at. Growing up, and what they had offered to them is beautiful. I love that you see that. And you said something earlier too about, when you have conversations and the way people misconstrue, and you're correct. Like we distort, we delete, or we generalize, right? Different conversations and what we hear. And in texting now,
Yes.
You don't even hear tonality. As you know, you're an actor, so tonality is everything, right? And because you move an audience even with your facial expressions, and you don't even get to see any of that. And, we're emoji driven, whatever that is, right? I mean, I don't even know 99% of the emojis on my phone. And, but we have all of that. And so to your point, though, I think it's so valuable, even like with what Imani said, because you said you weren't expressing love. You just weren't expressing it the way that she receives it, right? Through her model of the world. And so to your credit, I applaud you. Even the way that you include your other sister, like, hey, what do you think? Because if she is that introvert and she's not, she now hears, my hallucination is that she's hearing, oh, I'm valuable to him because he's asking me what I think. He wants me to weigh in on something he's choosing, right?
Yeah.
So you, because that's awesome. Yes, exactly, big brother. So going forward in your life, tell us a little bit about even your acting and like what you're up to and what you want to do.
That is incredible. There's some, I can't speak about this project that I'm a part of. They have me sign an NDA, so I can't speak about it, but I'm excited about that. I can come on again when that comes out and discuss that a little bit more. The acting piece is really been picking up. I obviously had the Bud Light spot, which was with the NFL, which is a dream come true because I played football. And you said something the other day that really resonated. I appreciate you. I don't know if it was like you said, I remind you of Coach Prime, and he's dope. I love Coach Prime. I love him so much. So the fact that you even said that was like, wow, I'm humbled. So, but his journey is incredible. He was a football player. I loved him. I was a cornerback as well. He was a cornerback. So where was I going with that? Basically, I just really just appreciate the Bud Light spot because I played football, but I'm obviously not 6'4", 500 pounds and wouldn't have made it in the league. So that was my way of getting in the league, that Bud Light spot.
That was a fun way.
Yeah.
And hopefully a lucrative way. That was a fun spot, right?
It was super fun.
And it's super fun to get paid for your passion,
Oh,
right?
yes.
Like, I
Yes.
mean, especially who makes it for Super Bowl commercials? Like, please, you know, I mean, it's either Bud Light or Doritos, right? Those
Oh,
are the biggies. So good for you. And so what do you do? Because you've taken all of what we've talked about,
mhm.
including all the neuroencoding, the things you've learned from Tony and through all the other mentors, and you've packaged them into something so beautiful that you offer to other actors and people in your craft, in your field. And so what does that look like? What is it that you offer to them, and how do you do it?
So the way I do it is it's really foundational on the 60-20-20 principle. And right now I have an 8-week process that I walk actors and entrepreneurs through so they can actually start to magnetize their success. Because the 60 part is psychology. So for actors, sometimes, and I asked an actor this the other day, do you think that you're worth the booking? Do you think you're worthy of the booking? And
Mm,
sometimes subconsciously there might not be. They might not feel that way. So if once we shift the psychology and then help them with their energy and help them with their magnetism, then they can greatly stack the odds in their favor. And it's not theory that I'm teaching because I've used this process for myself, right? So I know
yeah.
it works. And I've also taught some other people small principles to be able to help them get success as well. So at this point, I know it's not theory. I know it works. The question that people that choose to work with me, and if you're looking for me, I'm looking for you. If you choose to work with me, no pressure, no pressure. The question you have to ask yourself is why wouldn't it work for you? If it's based in science and heart-centered modalities like neuroencoding. So it's an 8-step process, 8-week process, and they could gladly book a call and we can talk to them a little bit more about how it works with them within their circumstance. So yeah, that's how I'm helping actors and entrepreneurs right now.
So a couple of things. So 60-20-20, we know what you mean by that is 60% psychology, 20% energy, and 20% magnetism. Would you be open to sharing with our audience what magnetism is? Like, because most people don't, they hear the 80-20, right? They don't hear
Right.
60-20-20. So
Yes. Yes. So we've all heard about the law of attraction and the secret and things like that. So the question I ask myself is if people understand this intellectually, they understand that the law of attraction, which is saying that I want this, I'm visualizing, I'm speaking, I'm affirming all these things, this thing should be coming to me. That's the law of attraction. Magnetism is when you want that thing and that thing also is being pulled to you. And it's based in science. Our mentor, Joseph McClendon III, PhD, had to teach rocket scientists, all these people. So it's based in fact, right? So
yep.
once you learn how to become more magnetic and not only after beyond this 8-week course, you'll have it for the rest of your life to apply in any area that you want to. So
Yeah.
does that answer your question? I want to make sure I can go more
Yes.
in depth if you want to.
No, it did. And well, you said it earlier. You're looking for me. I'm looking for you. You know,
Yeah.
when you talked about the potential of clients. And the other thing too is what you're saying as far as like magnetism, our brain is magnetic or is electric, our heart is magnetic. And you know this, I'm sure, but in your heart, one of the first things to be formed in a fetus is actually a physical brain. And so like that scripture you mentioned, your pastor friend earlier, the scripture, as a man thinketh in his heart, so
All right.
is he,
Yes.
because there's a brain in your heart. So that's where that scripture actually comes from. Most people don't know. And I learned that from Tony Robbins, not the scripture part, but the
Mm.
heart there. And the Heart Math Institute, if you ever want to research, mind-blowing stuff, like with people who have heart transplants and the things that happen from there. When you align your electric and your magnetic, you're pumping, right? The
Mhm.
electric into the magnetic, you're magnetizing all that to you, right? So you
Yep.
darn well better get your thoughts right,
Yep.
or you're going to magnetize to you the land of suck. You know
That's
that. I know that, right? Because how many times have you been, oh, you know, whiny pea pants, boohoo, whatever. And then all of a sudden in front of you, you have the very thing that you were so afraid of
I've
because
been
you
there.
just, I have too. Like how many times, right? The wrong
Right.
person, wrong relationship, you didn't get the gig, you didn't, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And because that's what you're magnetizing. So would you say, or would you share with us then, what do you have to do to make sure that your psychology, your energy, and your magnetism is all in alignment so that you magnetize to you what you really want? I don't want you to give away your 8 weeks, you know,
Right.
but what would you say to somebody?
I would say that let's go back to that principle that you brought up earlier that Jim Rohn brought up. You are the average of the 5 people you spend most time with. So when I was growing up in the inner city, if I was out in the streets and was being influenced by some people like that, then that thought pattern, those things are going to be infectious to me. What I had to do to break out of that was, okay, well, mom, okay, you tripping. I don't really feel like what you're saying, but maybe she has some truth right here. Maybe there's something here that I can latch onto. Or the DARE officers that would come in and talk about drugs. I don't know if you guys remember the commercials. This is you. This is your brain on drugs. Like, and they put it on the bed. I was like, no, I don't want my brain on drugs. God damn it. You know, I don't know if I curse, apologies. But I don't want my brain on that. So like that was profound as well. And just
Right.
surrounding myself with just really intentional people. And then books. Also, there was something that I forget who said it. They said any challenge that you've ever kind of gone through in your life, has been overcome and written about in books. So biographies. And
Wow.
there's a great book. If people haven't read it, there's a great book called Outwitting the Devil, by Napoleon Hill. And he, at the end, he talks about, I think he calls it like a round table. Have you read the book? Have you heard that book?
No, and it's actually on my list. So you saying that just
Yeah.
bumped it on my list.
It's so good, Cindy. I want to talk to you about it once you read
Yes,
it.
please.
At the end of it, he talks about like creating a round table. So people that I think that you mentioned, like the Tonys, the JM3s, if you're blessed enough to be around these people, but for people that aren't, if you had to imagine this person talking to you, put them on your round table and talk to them every night. And
Mhm.
what are they talking about? What do they think about? And then adopt those thoughts to the best of your ability. And also something I would say, if you are in a kind of negative or challenging environment, or you feel like you I told somebody this the other day. I've not always been this like smiley, kind of happy, joyful person. I know my face is blank, but I have real joy in my life right now, right? And I used to think this is horrible, but I used to think if people are smiling, man, they're faking it. There's no way they could be that happy. They're fake. Like I thought, but now I know it's true and it's beautiful on this side. So
Right.
what helped me get out of that was shifting, one, who I was hanging out with, two, really conditioning my nervous system and changing some beliefs. So that's something I work on with people as well, shifting your beliefs. If my belief was like, oh, people are faking it, because what's psychology? It's what you think about yourself, what you think about others, and what you think about the world around you. So if my
Exactly.
thought was like, oh, other people are faking their smiling, then what's that mean for me? It means if I smile, then I'm bullshit. I'm bull crapping
That's right.
myself.
That's right.
Right? So I had to learn that through getting through some other people and books, Joseph, Tony, you, different people, to be
Thank you.
around people to really, yeah, joy's out here. People living their victorious life, Cindy. Tell them.
100%. Joy's my jam. So when I introduce myself, I tell people I'm a joy catalyst. And
Yeah,
that is it. And I used to get on people's, I used to get on people's nerves. And people did believe that. Is she really always that happy? How could she go through those things and experience joy? Because my joy wasn't experiential. My joy wasn't based on circumstance,
yes,
and I would say, of course, the joy of the Lord is my strength, A,
yeah,
and B, it really is anchored. I had to, when I went through that, that time period of my life in 2021, 22, I actually encoded myself to default to gratitude and joy. That
love that.
really was and it was deliberate and intentional. Now you said something earlier, like about me having the privilege of being around these people. So let me tell you,
Mhm.
as I shared earlier, I only watched them on YouTube and stuff. I magnetized it
See?
because of exactly what you're saying. I changed my psychology. I changed my energy and my frequency, and I had to. It's like having a TV remote. You don't like it, pick up the remote and change the channel.
That's
So
right.
I changed the channel, and I aligned and made sure that I plugged my frequency into where they were at.
Yep,
And then, less than a year later, I'm sitting in front of Tony with 13,000 other people, right? At
yep,
UPW. And then fast forward, all the other things. That's even knowing Vinu and having Vinu for my coach. It was all of that, and seeing Joseph for the first time. Because the thing is, when you get in alignment, you don't
yes,
really know like what God's up to. And
yep,
you just have to show up, and he's going to guide your steps, right?
yep.
And so I didn't know when I got irritated when Joseph walked on stage because I paid for Tony, and here comes this guy. And then I was with him within 10 minutes, but I was like, who the freak is that? I paid for Tony. I've waited all these years, and who's this? And now look at where we're at, right? I know you
Right.
because of Joseph. I get to know you and have you as my friend and all the different things, and it boils down to being in alignment. Grab that remote and change this channel, right?
That's absolutely right. Yeah. It's funny. It's funny. When I first saw Joseph, I was like, oh, a black guy. It's
Of
like,
course you were, right?
yeah, yeah. That's funny.
And such an amazing black guy, like,
Yes.
and yay. And it was, I had waited, like, I'm closer to your mom's age, right? I'm probably older than your mom, but I had waited. um I remember being back in Hawaii 30 plus years ago, seeing Tony on an infomercial. And so I
Wow.
had waited and doing personal power. I did his first program and then buying his big fat Mondo book, Unleash the Power, whatever it was, and all of that. So me going to his event in 2019 in Miami, Pitbull was there, which was funny because we were breeders of pit bulls and American bullies. So for me, that was like a big sign,
Yeah.
but going to that event was life changing. So when Joseph or anybody, Siri Lindley, Scotty, all of them walk on, I'm like, wait, I just want Tony. I just want Tony. And
Yeah.
yet it was truly that was how God used Tony to get me in front of Joseph.
That's
Right.
absolutely right. Yeah.
All we have to do is just show up and have faith that it's
That's
all working out
absolutely
for our good. Right. So
I
where
agree.
does your faith play in your life? Where does that play your role?
Faith is, Cindy, let me tell you, faith is everything for me. There's no way that I would have navigated childhood, sleeping in the Bronx, sleeping on the floor, turnstiles, all that kind of stuff without faith. I grew up in a church and was didn't had this did the whole thing, Bible study Tuesday, the sleep-ins during New Year's. And I don't want to do this, man. I'm very much like that. And raise a child the way it should be, and it's going to stay there. Like throughout my life, anytime I'm like, nah, I'm not really trying to mess with that. Like back, Bible, all this kind of stuff. So faith in terms of just really trusting that there's a divine plan for each and every one of us, and exactly what you said, that it's all working out for our good. That's a belief. And it's a belief that serves me, and that served you, and it continues
Yes.
to serve me. There's like I said, I still pinch myself that I'm around some of the mentors that I watched on YouTube, that I watched. It's
Right.
incredible to me.
Right.
It's like prayers answered. So that
Right.
magnetism, things like that. So where does faith play? I kind of want to give a concise answer. It is one of the foundational pillars of who Aaron Lloyd is. There's no way without faith I would have given up. Without faith, how can you hope? Without faith, how can you believe? Faith
Right.
is one of my check this out. So when I was in the city, when I was living in the Bronx, and when I was living in the Bronx, sleeping on the floor, I was kind of in a place where I want this acting career, and I also want to maintain a level of integrity within the acting career. And I was watching a show called Friday Night Lights. Shout out to another mentor of mine. Have you seen the show Friday Night Lights? So Friday Night Lights, and on this show, there's a character named Smash Williams, and I love Smash Williams. I wanna, this is the kind of character I want to play. I think I could play, and I looked up who the actor was. Check out how God works. L- I didn't know. I didn't. I was like, I just clocked that. I had a gig doing a Shakespeare summer gig at a university. And at this university, somebody was like, "Oh yeah, there's this guy that came here. He was studying theology and things like that. He was on Friday Night Lights. Didn't clock it then.
Ah.
Cut to I'm now writing a letter to this guy because hey man, I just want some advice. I'm not a stalker's fan or things like that. I'm a professional too. I'm not where you are, your level of success. I would just love to pick your brain for 5 minutes. Wrote him a letter, was vulnerable in the letter about what I was going through, struggling with faith, right? Because sleeping on the floor in the Bronx, didn't have faith. What can I do? What can I do? Let me write this guy a letter. I have nothing to lose. Why did the guy write me back? He wrote me back. I wasn't expecting an answer. And then him and I he's not only a mentor, he's a friend now. Like I could hit him up and just hit him up. And he's like, he's amazing, amazing guy. So talking about faith, like that's what it's led to. Relationships led
Yes.
to dreams that I didn't even think of or dream of. It's kind of
Yes.
like that thing where you have a dream and God says, have you ever seen the graphic on Instagram where there's kind of like a kid with a bear, small bear. It's like, but I want this one. But then you see somebody else with, I have something better for you, and it's a bigger bear. Have you
Uh,
seen that? Like,
no.
I feel like sometimes that's the way God, universe, whatever you believe, avails itself to you when you're available to it via
Yep.
faith.
Yep.
Yeah.
It is. It's according to your faith.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and it's according to your BS, your belief system. It's according to, well, because of what you said. I mean, the bigger that your faith is, the more you're going to see that bigger can.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it's always there being offered to you. You just don't have the faith to see it or the faith to get through it. I mean, it's interesting. Like if you know anything about Moses and, being in the wilderness for 40 years, etc., the walk they took should have
Mhm.
taken them 10 days. It took
Yes.
them years, right?
Yes.
And even when the guys went on the other side and oh my gosh, you won't believe this, the grapes, they're so big, and there's this and there's that and all of that in the promised land, and they're like, no bueno, right? Because of what? And it's because of what you wrote, even the things that I know you're passionate about talking about, the toxic 10. It
Yes.
really boils down to fears. And one of the things you said earlier is because of that faith, yes, we get to know the people we know. I mean, we're going to be hugging Joseph in a few weeks, and Mr. Brown, and all of our friends and all of that. Who gets that life, right?
I know.
And it's because of our faith, and are faith-filled men. And I would say that, like, look at who you are attracting. If you don't like what's in your life, look in your heart, look in where your thoughts are at. Even keep a little journal and think about what you're thinking about and seeing
Yes.
what you're bringing into your life. And if you'd prefer to have something different, then give yourself a deluge of that frequency, meaning like what I had to do, what you did, what we've done through books, podcasts, YouTubes, Google, anything you don't, if you want, I want this, and then put it in Chat GPT and
Yeah.
say, what podcast do I need to be aligned with to create this in my life? Or who do I, and do it, right? And go for it. So I love that you magnetize Smash. That's so cool. And that you had the courage. And then look at how in alignment, with his degree in theology, or that he went to school for that or whatever, that kind of brought you, again, just look at God's hand in your life.
Yes.
Like, okay, he might take this exit, but I got this traffic light over here that'll just kind of nudge him back on the freeway. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
That is so neat. I'm having a blast. This is a fun conversation. Thank you.
This is the fastest hour. Like I just looked at the clock. I was like, dang, already?
Already, I know. And I'm so grateful. And so speaking of grateful, I know for myself to really encode myself to gratitude and joy.
Mhm.
Like, and like you, I'm not faking it. It just, I couldn't switch it off unless I inundated myself with a bunch of garbage. It's hardwired into me. So what do you do with gratitude? Because I know you walk, just from having a few conversations with you, you walk in that space and place of grace. So what do you do with your gratitude? Share with us. Like,
Yes. The first thing I do in the morning is start my day with gratitude. As soon as every breath, if I can, I mean, you wake up, it's like, oh, I know Joseph wakes up, he's like this. Sometimes I'm still working on that myself. But sometimes you wake up, I'm breathing, I'm alive, I'm grateful. I become grateful about small things. If it's like, I can say things like my health, there's a time I injured my thumb and I couldn't open doors. So sometimes I'm grateful I have a thumb. I can actually turn a knob.
yes.
Thank God for my Achilles heels. Thank you that I can see. So the way it manifests itself for me is I'll write it down. You write down 10 things that you're grateful for, and throughout the day, I'll remind myself, I'm grateful. I'm grateful. I'll say that to myself. I'm grateful for this. I'm grateful for that. If I find myself getting frustrated from it, it's like the wired thing you're talking about. The automatic default for myself, I don't stay there very long at all. At all. It's profound. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's
Right.
really amazing. And like I write great gratitude things down, and throughout the day I'll think about things I'm grateful. I'm grateful I have my thumb. I'm great if I'm playing a sport or I'm at the gym. Thank God I can lift this. Wow. I saw somebody at the gym the other day who had one arm. He's still in there. Kudos to him for having that kind of like grit to do that. It's like the things that we take for granted. Thank you, God, I have this. Thank you. Thank you.
100%. 100%. Or thank you that you're not sleeping on the floor in the Bronx. Or I know I wake up in the morning and I'm kind of like Joseph that way. I'm so excited to be awake. Like, and instantly I'm like, okay, God, what do we get to do today?
I love
But
that.
what I'm grateful. Okay, I'll wrap it up right now. What I'm grateful for, though, is little things like even I'm grateful that I have toothpaste. I'm grateful that I
Yes.
have a toothbrush. I'm grateful that I'm not flat ironing my hair on an ironing board. You know,
Yeah.
like I did when I was a kid. But hey, so our hours gone by so quickly, and I know even our producer Eduardo, which we love, is saying, "Hey, time." Normally, we get a little bit more time to say goodbye. So please, really quickly, where can they find you?
You can find me at Arron Lloyd at Instagram,
Yes.
ARRONLLOYD, or Arron Empowers, ARRONEMPOWERS.com. Love to
Perfect.
connect.
Thank you. And thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm so grateful you're here. I love you. You can look me up on Facebook, Cindy Gould, or the Victory Network. Join our group. And thank you. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish Radio Network. Please check it out. SpanglishWorld.ca for all the news and programming. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, live it. Thanks, Arron. I love you.
Love you
Okay,
too.
Eduardo. Thank you. Okay.